What's up, guys? My name is Sion, and I want to welcome you to my corner. You know that in wrestling, there will always be a good guy and a bad guy. They need each other for the stories to work. But sometimes a superstar gets stuck in their career and needs to make a drastic change to reach another level or advance in storyline. Many times, this change comes in the form of switching from a good guy to a bad guy, what we call a heel turn. With the recent events we have seen this week, I started thinking about some of the best heel turns in history, those that shocked the world and reside in our minds until today. So, let's get into the topic. Let's begin with a classic one. The Rockers were one of the best tag teams in the late 80s, making an impact in several promotions including the AWA as the Midnight Rockers, where they won the tag team gold multiple times. In 1988, they joined the WWF under the name The Rockers and were frequently presented as one of the company's top tag teams. However, they never officially won the tag titles. While they did defeat the Hart Foundation for the belts in 1990, the match was never televised and WWE does not recognize their reign. By the final months of 1991, tension began to rise between them. In one instance, Marty Jannetty threw Shawn Michaels into the ring during a singles match against Ric Flair, only for Michaels to suffer a loss. At Survivor Series 1991, Marty accidentally caused Shawn's elimination during a traditional 5-on-5 match, leading to a heated argument. Their final match as a tag team ended in a loss, as they struggled to get along and engage in another dispute. This tension ultimately led to Brutus the Barber Beefcake inviting them to his interview segment The Barbershop to address their issues. Just when it seemed like they had finally reconciled, Michael superkicked Jannetty and threw him through the barbershop window, officially ending their partnership and making the jump to the dark side. This heel turn remains as one of the most impactful moments in wrestling history. It was completely unexpected, as it truly seemed like their issues had been resolved. The betrayal marked a radical shift in Shawn Michaels' career, paving the way for him to become a Hall of Famer and one of the greatest superstars in WWE history. Since their debut at Survivor Series 2012, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns were portrayed as an unstoppable force. From the moment they appeared, it was clear that the company had big plans for the trio. They faced and defeated everyone who dared to stand in their way. Superstars like John Cena, Ryback, Sheamus, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan, Kane and even The Undertaker all fell before the hounds of justice. During the road to WrestleMania 30, The Shield began having issues with the Authority after months of following their orders. This led to the return of Evolution as Triple H, Randy Orton and Batista reunited to take on the trio. Despite the odds, The Shield defeated Evolution in two back-to-back encounters. The night after Payback 2014, where The Shield once again triumphed over Evolution, Batista quit WWE, leaving Triple H and Orton on their own. Later that night, just when it seemed like The Shield had finally won the war, Triple H reminded them that there is always a plan B, and that's when Seth Rollins betrayed his brothers, attacking them with a steel chair and aligning himself with the Authority. This moment was a turning point in WWE's modern era. On June 2, 2014, three superstars were officially launched into the next stage of their careers. Though they were always established as one of the greatest factions of all time, this betrayal set them on individual paths to greatness. To this day, all three remain top stars in the wrestling industry, each carving out his own legacy. At Survivor Series 1996, the world was introduced to Rocky Maivia, a third-generation wrestler. The son of Rocky Johnson and the grandson of Peter Maivia, from the moment he debuted, WWF positioned him as a future main eventer, with Maivia becoming the sole survivor in his team's traditional 5-on-5 elimination match. Just a few months later, in February 1997, he won the Intercontinental Championship only 3 months after his debut. However, the company's effort to push him as the next top babyface, combined with his rapid success, backfired. Fans rejected him, booing him at every appearance. The reaction was so hostile that the crowds began chanting "Die, Rocky, die," a clear sign that the character was not connecting. The overwhelming negativity became impossible for WWF to ignore. Then, in August 1997, Rocky shocked everyone by joining the Nation of Domination, officially turning heel. He began referring to himself as The Rock and blamed the fans for forcing him to change. This shift in persona unleashed his true charisma, allowing him to showcase the personality he had been holding back. With this newfound confidence, The Rock catapulted himself into the main event scene, eventually becoming one of the greatest performers in WWE history. Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan were bitter rivals from 1985 to mid-1987, battling over the WWF World Heavyweight Championship multiple times. Despite Savage's best efforts, Hogan always managed to retain the title. Their rivalry continued until October 3, 1987, on Saturday night's main event, 12, when Savage was attacked by the Honky Tonk Man, and his wife Miss Elizabeth rushed backstage for help, which came in the form of Hulk Hogan. After Hogan made the save, he and Savage shook hands, officially forming a new alliance, the Mega Powers. Over the following months, the duo competed in tag team matches, solidifying their dominance. On February 5, 1988, Hogan lost the WWF Championship to Andre the Giant, who then vacated it shortly after. This led to a championship tournament at WrestleMania 4, where Randy Savage defeated Ted DiBiase in the finals to become the new WWF champion. Hogan played a key role in Savage's victory and celebrated with him after the match. During the second half of 1988, the Mega Powers feuded with teams like the Mega Bucks, Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase, and the Twin Towers, Akeem and Big Boss Man. Despite occasional tension, they always managed to work through their difference and secure victories. However, cracks in their alliance began to show when Hogan started acting overprotective and overly friendly toward Miss Elizabeth. He insisted that she accompany him to ringside for his single matches, which sparked jealousy in Savage. Tension finally exploded on February 3, 1989, at the main event 2 during another tag match against the Twin Towers. During the match, Miss Elizabeth was injured and Hogan abandoned Savage to take her backstage for medical attention. When Hogan returned, Savage, furious and feeling betrayed, slapped him in the face and walked out of the match. Backstage, the situation escalated into a heated argument, with Savage accusing Hogan of trying to steal both Miss Elizabeth and his WWF Championship. The confrontation ended when Savage attacked Hogan with the title belt, officially turning heel. This was one of the most dramatic and memorable betrayals in WWE history. However, despite its emotional build-up, it was ultimately a setup to push Hogan back into the title picture, leading to his victory over Savage at WrestleMania 5. And speaking of Hulk Hogan, let's keep talking about him. For years, he wasn't just the face of the WWF, he was the face of the entire wrestling industry. Hogan's dominance through the 1980s and the early 1990s was undeniable, practically turning WWF into the center of the wrestling world. Ignoring the mind behind the character, Hogan was a hero to those who grew up watching wrestling in that era. He was the archetype of a babyface, the ultimate good guy. He defined what it meant to be a main event superstar. If there was a minor event, Hogan was in it, and if there was a world title match, his name was practically written all over it. But that all changed in 1993 when, unexpectedly, Hogan decided to leave WWF. His final appearance came in August of that year, and less than a year later, he jumped ship to the WCW, which was the WWF biggest rival, turning his back to the company that made him a household name. He officially signed with World Championship Wrestling on June 11, 1994. Just a month later, at Bash at the Beach, he defeated Ric Flair to become WCW World Heavyweight Champion. However, times had changed. This wasn't the 1980s anymore. The wrestling business had evolved and so had the fans. People were tired of Hulkamania, of the red and yellow, of the same old promos and poses. The audience rejected Hogan's classic persona, and if he wanted to stay relevant, he needed to evolve. That evolution came at Bash at the Beach 1996. The Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, were scheduled for a 6-man tag team match with an unknown partner. Through the build-up, they kept his identity a secret. The match began as a 2-on-3 handicap match, and at one point, Nash and Hall were attacking Randy Savage. Then, suddenly, Hogan's music hit. The crowd exploded, expecting him to do what he always did, save the day. But instead, Hogan did the unthinkable. He entered the ring and dropped Savage with his signature leg drop, not once, but multiple times. Hulk Hogan had turned heel. He was a mystery third man all along. With that one shocking moment, Hogan revitalized his career and gave birth to one of the greatest factions in wrestling history, the New World Order. The night of King of the Ring 1996 saw the birth of a legend. After Stone Cold Steve Austin delivered his now iconic Austin 316 promo, the entire wrestling industry changed forever. He will go on to become WWF top superstar in the face of the legendary Attitude Era. But every hero needs a villain, and if there was one rivalry that defined that era, it was Austin vs McMahon, the rebellious anti-hero versus the ruthless corporate boss. For years, Austin and Vince McMahon waged an all-out war. They clashed inside and outside the ring, engaging in some of the most brutal, personal and unforgettable battles in wrestling history. Week after week, Vince threw every obstacle imaginable in Austin's way, only to be outmatched, outwit, and beaten down by the Texas Rattlesnake. Then came WrestleMania 17, widely regarded as the greatest WrestleMania of all time. The main event, Stone Cold Steve Austin vs The Rock for the WWF Championship, a rematch from their epic encounter 2 years earlier. Partway through the match, Mr. McMahon made his way to ringside. Given his story with The Rock, fans assumed that he was there to help Rocky. After all, The Rock had once been McMahon's corporate champion, and Vince had every reason to screw over his longtime enemy Austin. But then, in a shocking twist, McMahon did the unthinkable. Instead of attacking Austin, he turned to The Rock, assisting Stone Cold in his quest for the championship. With McMahon's help, Austin won the WWF title, and in the aftermath, he and Vince shook hands, confirming that they had been working together all along. This moment stunned the wrestling world. The ultimate anti-hero had aligned himself with his greatest enemy. Unfortunately, Austin's heel turn that followed wasn't as successful as many hoped, but that doesn't diminish the impact of this moment. The Austin-McMahon handshake at WrestleMania 17 remains as one of the most shocking and controversial moments in WWE history. For years, WWE pushed Roman Reigns as the company's top superstar, doing everything in their power to get him cheered by the fans. However, his rapid and forced rise, combined with questionable booking decisions, led to the complete opposite reaction. No matter what he did, Reigns was relentlessly booed, rejected by the very audience WWE wanted to win over. After half a decade of failed attempts to make Reigns the beloved face of WWE, the COVID-19 pandemic hit in the early 2020. Citing health concerns, Roman took a hiatus, stepping away from the ring for 5 months. Then came SummerSlam 2020, an event fittingly promoted as "You'll Never See It Coming," and WWE delivered on that promise. After a brutal battle between The Fiend and Braun Strowman, Reigns made his shocking return, attacking both men. While he hadn't changed much physically, there was something different. His demeanor, his aggression, his presence. Something had shifted. The confirmation came in the following SmackDown, where Roman was seen in his locker room alongside Paul Heyman, the former advocate for his longtime rival Brock Lesnar. With Heyman at his side, it was clear Roman had embraced the dark side. This heel turn was exactly what Reigns needed. After years of WWE trying to force his acceptance, it took just one night to completely transform his career. As a tribal chief, Roman finally became the megastar he was always meant to be, delivering the best work of his career and establishing one of the most dominant title reigns in WWE history. We are still in shock over this one. After more than 2 decades of John Cena preaching hostile loyalty and respect, a large portion of the WWE Universe grew tired of the same routine. For years, half the crowd booed him relentlessly, and many fans dreamed of the impossible, Cena finally embracing the dark side, just like in his early days. But no matter how much his opponents tried to push him over the edge, Cena always stood firm, overcoming every challenge while staying true to his principles. As time passed, Cena's schedule changed, Hollywood commitments took priority, and his WWE appearances became less frequent. The dream of a heel turn faded, buried under reality. Then came the bombshell. John Cena announced that 2025 would be his final year as a wrestler. Alongside this, he revealed plans for a farewell tour, leading many to believe he would retire with his legacy intact, never breaking his vow to never give up. But then came Elimination Chamber 2025. Against all odds, Cena outlasted the chaos inside the chamber, securing a WWE Championship match at WrestleMania 41. One last shot at glory, one final chance to break Ric Flair's record and claim an unprecedented 17th World Championship. And then, The Rock appeared. The self-proclaimed final boss attempted to pursue Cena's future opponent Cody Rhodes to join him as his new corporate champion, but Rhodes refused. It seemed like we were set for a classic face versus face WrestleMania showdown. Until the unthinkable happened. John Cena snapped. He blindsided Cody Rhodes, attacking him in front of a stunned audience. And in the most shocking twist of all, Cena aligned himself with The Rock. Two icons, once bitter rivals, now standing together with one mission: to crush the American nightmare. In that moment, the impossible became reality. John Cena had turned heel, and just like that, WWE history changed forever. And that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment and subscribe for more wrestling content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.